go. Okay, here we go. Block 1 of Plum Fusion. What's going to be fun about this is most of these blocks are modified 9 patches. So we're going to be able to construct the components of the block and then put the block together. So this is where we're going to start with our 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 squares, and we're going to do our half square triangles. You're going to layer them one on top of the other and mark the middle of your square, and you're going to sew lines on either side. Once this is done, and I'm actually going to use my square on a square tool so I can show you how we trim and set up our half square triangles. So when we cut this in half and press these open, they are going to be bigger than we need. They need to be, at this point, be trimmed to 2 1/2 by 2 1/2. Nope, we're going to do this again. Okay, we aren't trimming these. Sorry, it's okay. We'll edit. Okay, so, and we have 2 of these. Now, the first piece we're going to put together is a pinwheel. The instructions have you trimming down these into 2 1/2 by 2 1/2. You don't need to do that. Okay, once these are together, you can then trim to 4 1/2 by 4 1/2. It saves you a trimming step. So these are my untrimmed blocks, and you're going to set up your pinwheel. I always, because I can never quite figure out which way everything goes correctly the first time. See there. I always set up my pinwheel first before sewing together. Okay, from here you're going to sew these pieces and these pieces, and then you're going to sew from here this piece. So you have 4 of them put together. Now I'm going to use my square on a square trim tool. I want to trim this to 4 1/2 by 4 1/2. What I love about this is you're squaring from the center. You find that in Hawaiian we call this piko or belly button. So you lay that piko, that center, right on the center of your block. You can see the lines line up, and we trim, turn around, and trim. So one of the reasons I like doing a lot of my squaring with this is, did you notice I did not have to find the center again, right? The measurement for this point here is 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. You can absolutely square with your other ruler. Absolutely. It's the same thing. However, you now have to search for your 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. Make sure it lines up. And it's actually here where there's no real mark. Make my 2 lines. When I lift and I put it down, I need to now go ahead and find my 2 1/4 and 2 1/4 again. Make sure it lines up and go. It's much faster using this tool if you have it, because you always know where your center is. Okay, so this is going to be the center of our block. Okay, next we are going to do hourglasses. We're going to start with these 2 fabrics, your light and your purpley with the flowers. Very pretty. You're going to do exactly what we did the last time to make half square triangles. You're going to mark the center, sew on either side. You're going to cut it apart, and you're going to have 2 half square triangles. Now, I've seen people do quarter square triangles where they just take these, lay them one on top of the other, mark the center, sew either side, and cut them apart. I find that when I do that, I don't get precise centers. There's some shifting in here that can happen. And because I like more precise centers, I'm going to cut these in half before I sew them together. Now, because they're quarter square triangles, there's wackiness. You need to have 2 of them and turn them around to make opposites. Okay? So you can't just cut one and manipulate it into the quarter square triangle. You have to have 2 half square triangles and then manipulate them into the quarter squares. So when I sew these together, I'm going to line up those seams so they butt exactly before sewing. Okay? Once they're sewn, and I have it here, I'm again going to use my square and a square, lining up the center to the center of the hourglass, using these lines to get pretty close to the diagonals. It may not be perfect, but you know, we try and manipulate it to get as close as we can. And then we trim and trim. Now we will be making 4 of these. These are our sides. Yay! So we got 4 of these hourglasses. Okay. The last section we're going to make is a 3-part unit, and it's going to be taking these 3 pieces. You have your very light, your brown, and your green. Now, your first step is to sew these 2 together. Note, you all have to have, in order for this to work, the light on the right and the dark on the left. Okay? Meaning, don't do it that way. It is actually have to be the light on the right, the dark on the left, and do all 4 of them identical. Can you tell I had problems with that? I did. I had to take apart. Once these are done, you're going to sew the large green on top of that. And just like the others, we're going to be trimming this to 4.5 by 4.5. Okay? Find the center, trim, turn, and trim. So our block is now going to go together with this in the center. You are going to have your hourglasses on the sides. Remember, this is a modified 9 patch. When you put these on the side, all of the darks are towards your center. And then these go in with all the greens, your darks, towards the center. Okay? So you sew together row, 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 and then your units together. I'm going to squish them a little so you can see a little better that you're going to have this really amazing block. Okay? Block number 1. Thanks for joining us.